Well, I'm back. I mean, I never really went anywhere. I was just swamped with work and didn't really have the energy to do long-form research when I got home. Additionally, there were some stories that I did want to cover, but I didn't feel like I could actually add anything. But for this one, I'm on familiar territory. While I'm not a virologist or even a biologist in any sense, I am a chemist. Biologists apply our principles. So I can quite easily spot a bogus claim a mile away. So when Sajid Javid, the new health secretary, wanted to, and in fact is going to lift the UK's restrictions, and then the Eye published an article after the fact saying that basically there was a debate for it, I thought I'd better make a response. Part 1. Why do we even need a new health secretary? In short, I don't know. The Tories have done far worse and not got fired. And in fact, Matt Hancock, the former health secretary, wasn't fired. He resigned. But to explain more thoroughly, let's look at what he did. What about his actions were so horrific? Well, he kissed a girl, and he liked it. On a serious note, he did kiss a woman that wasn't his wife, and the entire British media gets up in arms that he didn't keep 2 meters away from the woman he had his tongue down. I'm being hyperbolic, obviously, but not by much. There is a bit of a debate as to whether he broke the law regarding inside meetings. But other than that, he just cheated on his wife, which would be cause enough to fire him in a party with very traditional views on relationships. But this wasn't why he was fired. Again, though, he quit. Johnson seemed more than happy to keep him, and in fairness, there were certainly worse Tories that could have been health secretary. For instance, Sajid Javid. So people wanted him fired for breaking guidelines, the ones that he set himself. But as my co-writer pointed out, why was he not fired over the contract scandals? It wasn't even the straw that broke the camel's back situation. According to YouGov, his approval rating was higher than the city of Ipswich, and the music band The Zombies. I'm not joking, go check our sources. His rating also didn't change. He's always been a well-known, mostly unliked person. There was no dip from any of the controversies. It did strike me as a little bit weird when Hancock stepped down. Like, him giving contracts was a glaring conflict of interest, with some even going to close party-aligned companies, or with him not even declaring those contracts within the 30-day window. These things are arguably worse. Just a thought. But fine, the UK has a new person in charge of health. What could possibly go wrong? Part 2. What's happening with COVID-19 right now? Yep, so the new health secretary, the Right Honourable Gentleman MP for Bromsgrove, Sajid Javid, a man who has been a cabinet minister for multiple positions, including perhaps the most coveted of them all, Chancellor of the Exchequer, as well as a whole bunch of other non-cabinet positions. Okay, so we have 22 cabinet positions. Mr. Javid has held about a quarter of them. He is a true blue Tory. So giving him this position makes political sense. Johnson will want someone on his cabinet who he can count on, one that isn't a wild card. At least in terms of his political ideology, he's not. Javid is arguably one of the most powerful men in Westminster, at least given the connections that he will have inevitably accrued over the years. Mr. Javid, however, has no experience with any health-related issues, or even in the health field. Mr. Javid is about as good as it gets when it comes to handling money, as he was the VP of Chase Manhattan and the senior MD of Deutsche Bank. That's managing director, not Medicini doctor. It's an impressive career, don't get me wrong, Mr. Javid, but it hardly gives you any experiences with the nuances of the medical world. And it does beg the question, has he been given the role because he's qualified, or because he's good with money? Because the latter introduces a level of concerning bias, and equally, a lacking concern to patients. This wouldn't really be an issue. When I first saw the news, my reaction was meh, just a plain Jane Tory. How bad can he be? He wasn't my pick. That would have gone to Dr. James Davies. If Boris Johnson needed a Tory hardliner with medical experience, the man has worked as a doctor for 15 years and has been on multiple health boards. But he wants to increase NHS funding, so do the maths. He also seems to have the NHS quite close to his heart. Again, does that remind you of the current government? So, before I start playing fantasy football with the cabinet, What did Javid do that was so offensive? He wants a total and unfettered stop to the government intervention in COVID-19. The UK is now on course for a total opening up. We're calling it Freedom Day. And of course the removal of the mask mandate. Something the Prime Minister is fully supporting. Now, it's worth noting that Javid said he will carry his mask for the foreseeable future, which is more than can be said for politicians across the pond. I get the impression that Mr. Javid isn't acting in bad faith. Sadly, that doesn't change how misguided this decision he made is. The UK, in my opinion, is heading for another wave of COVID. I say this because the rate of change currently is more aggressive than the November wave. The deaths aren't anywhere near as bad, so I guess the vaccines are working. This is, in my opinion, why the country is opening back up. Sure, infections are spiralling out of control, but deaths aren't really going up. Which, okay, let's talk about that one. Because I read this week, scientists divided over whether the public should be allowed to stop wearing masks after the 19th of July, in which the eye attempts to both sides of debate that simply just isn't happening. Sure, you might find outlier studies, or a scientist willing to go against the grain, but there isn't really a divide. The evidence is the masks work, public should wear them, and mandating them keeps people safe by making people that wouldn't wear masks wear them. Tom Nicholas has a great video on this, titled The Myth of the Free Press, in which he uses the following phrase: "It is generally fairly rare for the mainstream media outlets to entirely fabricate a story, for them to claim that something happened which simply never did. Yet this doesn't mean that they present us with the unfiltered, objective truth either. Basically, it's not the media's job to tell the truth. You can have the debate as to whether it should or not, but it's not what they do. The eye with this article primes the public for thinking that Freedom Day is at least up for debate. And I want to show you that it's not only not up for debate, but it's a bad idea." Part 3. It's a bad idea. With the government halting all laws on the COVID front, it's left to local constituencies to try and enforce it. Something Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, evidently agrees with, since he's exploring ways to make wearing masks mandatory through bylaws within London. It's currently going to be mandatory post-19th on TfL. This would be fine, and debatably a good idea in some context. The issue here is that the UK doesn't have a rigid decentralisation of local legislature. There is only so much a bylaw can do. Additionally, in the UK, you can be driving down a road and cross through multiple local authorities. It's also really easy to travel between locations in the UK. Look at another Tory for evidence of that one. This is one of the key reasons why the tiered system failed. This reason, along with a lack of clarity and unequal policies, contributed to the failing of that system. So it's pretty clear whatever happens needs to happen on a national level. Since my guess is, most local authorities won't look at the bylaw option because generally bylaws are really difficult to enforce and don't carry enough punishment to really be worth it. Additionally, the Secretary of State for Local Government has to approve the application, which is why Khan is currently mandating the use on TfL and exploring bylaw options, since he has a lot more power over TfL. So if there's no debate as to whether masks are a good thing, you might be asking, well, if people are vaccinated, then they won't get COVID, so why wear a mask? Well, you can still get COVID even if you're vaccinated. You're just at a significantly reduced risk. Additionally, if you get COVID, it's less intense and reduces your infectiveness. Ultimately, vaccines are a net good, and you should get it. If someone is feeling hesitant, I'm 24, I had the AstraZeneca vaccine, and I was told it was not standard practice for someone of my age group. I accepted the risk and had it anyway. The side effects were basically just a really rough hangover, which was over by the end of the next evening. So please don't think that because a vaccine has side effects, it's bad. It's not, and I was in a group that doesn't ordinarily get this vaccine because of those side effects, and it was perfectly fine. Look, I'm a scientist by trade, that's why I gave my informed consent. I knew the risks and I accepted them, but I know that hearing someone say that it's fine is a lot more convincing. You can go and look through all the papers or the meta-analyses in the world, but it won't change that feeling. But it'll be okay. The vaccine helps, and it's been tested and is safe. But okay, we'll explore the vaccination line a little bit more. S.M. Barchi et al. Suggested that the vaccination would need to be at 70% to eliminate the virus, and at 80% to do this without other measures such as social distancing. For context, the UK at time of recording has around 66% of all adults vaccinated. We need to vaccinate people, there is no doubt in my mind there. However, the idea that Javid is using current vaccination rates as evidence to open up again, despite evidence to the contrary, will only cause a worse outcome. One example of a worse outcome is further mutations. RNA viruses, which coronaviruses are, have evolved to mutate well in specific environments, i.e., the coronavirus that infects humans of a specific lifestyle is suited to mutation there, but changes to that environment will yield suboptimal mutation rates. Basically, letting the virus roam in public will yield more mutations. One particular mutation that is infinitely terrifying is one that would be vaccine resistant, which is a possibility. That's one of the reasons why some viruses need a booster shot. Basically, this could get extremely bad extremely fast. The more cases rise, the higher the likelihood that a vaccine-resistant strain will occur. But for the sake of argument, let's just say that you are going to need a booster shot because this does happen. Logistically, that's not an issue. If COVID has shown me anything, it's that this country is very capable of a mass vaccination event. But it will cost the taxpayer a lot, and it will be completely avoidable. So perhaps this will be appealing to the Tories then. I'm trying to save you guys some money, and also thousands of lives of British citizens, I guess. And that's not to mention the fact that as cases rise, then there'll be more hospital admissions, until such a point where there is no longer enough beds, let alone ventilators, which will mean more non-COVID patients will die. Deaths might be low now, but it's a delay. Admittedly further delayed by vaccination, in a good way, but it's still going to hit. The next wave will hit. Then to top all this off, that COVID app that the government has spent billions on, you know, the app that over the Euros final week pinged over 500,000 people. That app that's designed to save lives by finding people who are potentially infected and getting them to self-isolate. That will start being deleted due to a false sense of security. Or maybe people will be just annoyed by it. That will make the app less effective and then cause another cycle of deletion, which means it's even harder to trace COVID carriers. You know, it's one job. Part 4. Conclusion. I don't think my words will really have much impact. This video will maybe be viewed by 30 people. That's if I'm lucky. So, if you are watching this far, thank you for watching. Writing this sort of stuff is not something that I get to do very much with my job, and I do enjoy this. It helps keep my mind fresh, and it's fun to explore this sort of thing. But I'm not so insane to think that this video will have any impact on the wider UK. So, I'm not going to suggest things that the UK can do. That's why I didn't upload this video last week. I sat on it and did more research instead. I'm going to instead give some advice to you, the viewer, my fellow man. 1, get vaccinated. Without vaccination, this virus is going nowhere. Vaccination is the most effective way of getting rid of this virus. 2, wear a mask. I'm pretty lucky. My workplace is continuing the mask mandate. Additionally, thanks to some chemicals that we use in the lab, we have an abundance of masks, and always will. So I'm in quite a lucky position, but I know that some of you aren't. So if there's any business owners or anything watching, please, I urge you to have a mask mandate in place. If the government isn't going to enforce it, we can do that locally to the best of our abilities. Use this opportunity to protect people. 3, social distance. Ignore the government on this one. Please continue to follow the rules that they already put in place before. Ignore that they're lifting them. Then self-isolate if you get symptoms. 4, don't criticize each other for not wanting to meet up. Social pressure, when converted to SI units, is 100 times that of atmospheric. It's hard to not give in, so just don't put that pressure in the face of someone. Respect your friends and look out for them. And on the off chance that you are watching, Mr. Javid, reconsider everything. I'll take Hancock over you. At least he didn't try and actively kill us.